Okay, so these are the games for this week. And to be honest, I'm not really sure what to say. The first thing that comes to mind is that we have this game, Saturday Night Slam Masters, where this guy is shining with this fiery electric energy, right? Now, here, Rex Ronan, experimental surgeon. Rex Ronan is also inflamed or something. Like he isn't, but his logo is his yeah, his identity is a flame. And then here as well we have like some sort of fighter warrior guy who is he's not on fire, but he is emitting fire. So his body is covered in fire in the frame, or associated with fire in the frame. So, those are three examples of characters who are somehow identified with fire in these three covers. Now, so what exactly is going on in Rex Ronan, for example? He, I assume, is some sort of like a doctor who goes into like a tiny spaceship and destroys illnesses directly in the body or something like that. So this spaceship is attacking the the disease. So it's healing the body through attacking the disease within the body in small kind of in a small spaceship. Uh this again, it's hard to know where to take it. So I'm just going to focus on these three covers to begin with. Here we have this fiery guy is confronting this guy who is carrying like a beast on his shoulders. So uh I'm tempted to say, even though it's not very strongly suggested by the reading, but I'm tempted to say that these two guys form a unit, as if the beast is being carried, like the beast is a part of this guy's identity, kind of like the strength card or something like that. Like this is man and beast combined, and then the fire guy is facing man and beast. One possibility, which seems to come up a lot, is that fire here is non-material. It's somehow ethereal. There's something spiritual about this glow, right? And yet beasts and animals are the most material symbol, I think. Well, I'm exaggerating. You know, it's a very material symbol. I think it usually relates back to our connection, not with God, but with the earth. So this guy would be somehow connected to the heavens, spirit. This guy is somehow connected to the earth, to the animal part of oneself. And they are, I was going to say confronted, but I don't even know if they're confronted. They're kind of just looking at each other. I don't feel a deep, like, violence or anger from one to the other. I feel more of like an intense stare down between them. They're looking at each other. They're looking at each other, the opposite. So, okay, and then the third cover that aligned with this fiery theme was Street Combat, which, I mean, you know, it's hard to tell. If I were to stretch it, I would also say that this guy seems to be using this kind of like spiritual kind of attack. And obviously I don't want to equate spiritual with good here and material with bad. I'm just saying it seems as if this guy is more kind of representative of energy, whatever that means. And this guy's weapon is clearly material, right? It's nothing more material than a big ball of iron or something like that, right? So again, there's a very different kinds of attacks being used against each other. And this guy is sort of hovering. This guy is on the earth. It's hard to know what to make of it. The only thing I can feel at the moment is that there seems to be the possibility, at least in these two covers, of a confrontation between spirit and matter. And in all three covers, a highlighting of the spirit character as being the protagonist somehow. I get the vibe that in all these cases, I don't know, this is maybe, who knows, maybe if I play the game, this guy is a protagonist, but I get the feeling that this guy is like not being highlighted, even though he's closer to the viewer. This guy seems to be like the classic kind of hero character. Again, just sort of my feelings about the reading, not so much the feelings about the games themselves. So even though we have a confrontation between spirit and matter, somehow spirit is more in the ego position, as if the ego here maybe is identifying more with spirit, but this is an ego who is confronting the animal. So it's not like an ego that identifies only with the spirit. It's an ego that is identifying with the confrontation between energy and matter. Something like that. Okay, so beyond this, I'm really not sure what to say. Because and I want to mention something about this because I find it quite interesting. See, I get this feeling that my lack of inspiration as to what to say about this reading is not related to the particular images that have appeared. This may not, I may be wrong, but I get the feeling that regardless of which games had come out, I wouldn't be really inspired to say anything today. I feel as if today I don't feel inspired by the images, no matter what they are. In opposition to, for example, a few weeks ago, I could tell that no matter what game came out, I really felt like finding meanings in them. I don't feel that way this week. So that's part of the reading, I feel. I think that's part of the vibe of the reading. So Tecmo Super Bowl. Again, this is funny because it's something I've been feeling in a lot of these recent readings, that this, on the face of it, seems like a violent, within kind of sporting convention, violent in the sense of there's people sort of pushing each other, and there's kind of like a physical violence, a comfortable physical violence here. But I don't feel it to be violent exactly in the same way that I don't feel this confrontation between these two guys to be violent. And this somehow, it resonates with my lack of inspiration in reading the images. I feel as if there is not a big push or shove between the energies. They're kind of just staring at each other. And here as well, it's as if they're just kind of like, like touching each other or something. And I don't feel an explicitly sexual thing about this. It's just touching each other, in like bodies touching each other. So yeah, hard to know what to make of this. But of course, if I had to like force myself to shove it into the shape of these images, just to see, how I could make it fit, I would say that the way energy versus matter is being expressed in this image is that this is very material kind of thing, right? Bodies colliding. It's almost like billiard balls, like colliding into one another. It's as if these aren't really so much. I'm not focusing so much on the humanity of these bodies, and so much like the the physicality of the bodies colliding against each other, and yet it it doesn't feel strained or stressful or violent. It feels desired, but not in a sexual way. And I think that's where maybe the energy or the spiritual side of this is, in like a confrontation between bodies where there is like an equal balance between surrendering to the experience, like this guy just surrendering to what's happening, and at the same time willfully kind of colliding against it. There is a mix of sort of like solar and lunar energies for me in this picture. So it's funny because, again, several things come to mind, but they're not very connected kind of thoughts. Here again, there is this strange thing of like fire, but also a huge ship, a huge vessel being attacked by airplanes, and airplanes attacking the huge vessel. So again, there's a mix between the attacking and being attacked. No one is victorious in this image. The airplanes are, in flames, and the ship is in flames. So everyone's in flames and everyone is attacking. Everyone is giving and everyone is receiving, like in this picture, right? There's a complete mix of giving and receiving, like in this image as well. A stare down. It's a fight that somehow reached a weird kind of equality, where the violence of the fight or the intensity of the fight is heightened, but the conflict implied in the fight is not. It reaches this weird sort of like blissed out Zen state or something. And target or be targeted. I don't know. And yeah, I mean, again, I could connect it to other things. I could say that, Rex Ronan is using a little airplane. So this is also a confrontation between tiny airplanes and big ship, right? Whereas here also we have tiny airplane versus huge Leviathan kind of body, the beast, right? Like here also the beast. The beast is bigger than the spirit in the sense that it envelops all of physical nature. Like it has bigger extension, metaphorically, because it's the only thing that has extension to begin with. So maybe it's as if the idea of size here is maybe representative of the physical world, and then the tiny thing is representative of spirit, in the same way that elves and fairies are representative of spirits, and they are tiny, like the tininess is part of their mythological image. And then, of course, these three. I'm not sure how to fit these three into this, or what they are saying exactly. Illusion of Gaia, apparently in Europe, is called Illusion of Time, and yet Gaia is planet Earth, so it's as if both concepts, both space and time, are being used. Gaia is space, Earth, time is time, so it's either illusion of space or illusion of time. This could be something to do with the illusory nature of space and time, the Maya-like quality of it, but I feel that's just me kind of jumping to conclusions there. I'm not sure if that's, regardless of the truth or lack of truth of that statement, I don't know if that's what this image is trying to convey in conjunction with all of these other images. Here we have a monkey. Okay, I had not thought this as I was looking at the image, but maybe I can make use of another one of the handy aspects of the reading, which is that these images are not randomly distributed. This is exactly the order that the numbers came in. So this is the first number, second number, third number, fourth number, and so on. So this image is directly under this one, and these are the two images where we have a kind of an explicit beast character, right? This is an explicit, like, not fully human kind of beast character, and here too, like an anthropomorphic beast monkey character. Spanky's quest. He's walking away from the ocean, from the sunset, kind of. Who knows where towards, but he's walking away from the sunset. So maybe he's rising, right? If he's walking away from the sunset, he's rising, he's emerging, in the same way that this guy is rising above. Again, a theme that has come up in past readings as well. We have two kind of like opposing fruits battling each other, but again, here the battle is expressed as something friendly, something pleasant, a game, right? In the same way that this is not, I don't feel it to be explicitly violent or this. So there is a game-like or pleasant quality to the confrontation between red and green, or like the opposites in some way. And this confrontation is taking place here by the sunset. What this actually adds to the reading, I'm not sure. All it adds, as far as I can tell, is just it heightens or emphasizes the beast character. And going purely by intuition, again, I don't fully identify the ego with this character. I feel as if this is a character who is not the ego. To me, this character is somehow the ego for some weird reason. Yeah, I feel a resonance between the ego and this character, but not with this character. This character seems to be like a visitor who has come from the underworld, from the sunset ocean place, and has arrived, is somehow happy. There is a peaceful kind of encounter between these worlds. And then, funnily enough, like with last week I had Paperboy was an image that I couldn't really place with the others, and it involved like a paperboy who is someone who brings you information, right, the newspaper, as being the only image that to me stood out from the rest. And this one also to me feels like a meta image. So maybe in conjunction with last week, I could say that this could be an emerging trend in the reading, meaning that maybe there is an emerging trend in these readings where one of the games somehow reminds me of the figure of Mercury. So Mercury somehow is standing apart from the rest of the reading as the person who conveys information, right? He's interpreting the game. You know, my ego wants to say that this is the interpreter, him or herself. So me doing this reading, or you doing your own interpretations of this reading or of anything else. But I don't feel a full ego identification with this character. Like with last week, I feel as if this is a character who is external to the ego and is communicating something. And see, whereas last week I felt as if this Mercury figure was going to come in the future, this time I feel as if this guy has already come. This is something of the past. Some kind of communication has happened. So maybe this is simply a confirmation of last week's reading. That is to say that in the gap between last week and this week, something has been communicated, and, you know, it has happened. Whatever it may be. And yeah, there's like a meta quality to this, in that this is like he is standing beyond the game. The game takes place behind him. He is standing kind of above it. He's kind of in this sort of bird's eye view, God eye view of the game, with therefore information on it that none of the individual players can have. and this information somehow has been communicated. That's sort of what I'm getting from it. It could be that this guy is the same as this monkey. It's this sort of character that I can't place with the ego exactly, and it would make sense because it's somehow a character who has information from a realm that the ego has no access to and has emerged to communicate it. It would also make sense because the monkey is, I think, symbolic of Mercury, at least in Egyptian mythology, let's say that the equivalent to Mercury, I think, in Egyptian mythology, I think can be expressed as a monkey, Thoth. Yeah, I mean, as usual, I always say there's nothing to say, but I could just go on and on about this, really, because it's so vague and ambiguous, and then simultaneously there seem to be these very specific, intuitive things, like this guy connecting to the monkey or stuff like that. That, again, I want to emphasize. I don't think this is anything. How would I say? It's hard to know what I mean when I say these things, but I definitely think that intuition is a big part of this kind of reading. This kind of goes into the whole spirit thing as well, in that, and it's sort of what I said at the beginning of the reading, that I think it doesn't really matter which images come out. In a sense, any images could have come out, and it would have been the same reading, because somehow it's the vibe that's hanging in the air that wants to be expressed. You know, whether this vibe pertains only to me and my life, or whether other people can identify with some of these themes, is a secondary question, I think. So there is this thing, and maybe this is kind of like what the reading is saying in a way, that the material structure of the reading is important, but it's also irrelevant in some ways. The reading wouldn't change if the games changed. At the same time, the fact that these games are the ones that I'm reading is important in itself, right? From like a synchronicity point of view, these are the games that came out. Like there is, I think, on the one hand, I want to not devalue the importance of chance here, in that whatever comes out through random selection of images, in this case, is important. There is an importance to the particular games that emerge, but there is also an importance to the universal archetype that these images are embedded in. So the archetypal story that these images are embedded in is a story that can be told by using different images, in the same way that the archetypal form of a tree can be expressed with different particular trees, right? But the particular tree that you're talking about will be unique. There is an importance to the particularity of whatever it is, whatever material form you are relating to or having an experience of at any moment, I think. So, yeah, okay. Those are kind of like some of the things that I'm getting from this week's reading. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.